Welcome to episode 72 of the Football Fitness Federation podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Jared from Stoke City. Jared is the head of sports science at Stoke. Jared, thank you very much for coming on.
No problem. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity to come on.
It's great to have you on, mate, and we're going to try and tie this episode into the previous episode. I can't remember what number it was now, but where Chalky was on, where Paul White was on, discussing all the great work that goes on at Stoke. So I'm excited to dive into it and get as much information to the guys as possible. So do you want to kick us off, mate? I've just mentioned your current role at Stoke, but do you want to take us back and go through your career so far, from your education to where you're at current day?
Yeah, for sure. So it sort of all started back for me in 2006. Didn't really know what I wanted to do when I left school, but I knew I didn't want to get a job straight away. So I went to college, did a sport and exercise science BTEC there, enjoyed that, and that sort of led me on to university. Did 3 really good years at Brighton, met some good people there, like Josh Hook, who's currently at Brighton, heading things up. Sam Wilson, who's at Arsenal now, so some really good guys. And then finished that, and then a family friend, Lawrence Bloom, who's at Millwall, was looking for a season-long internship at Charlton Athletic. So I went in with him, had a really good season there. We got promoted, and that was around the time that the EPPP kicked off as well. So there was the necessity for an academy sports science / first team, and I got on really well with the guys there. Chris Powell was the manager at the time, and he pushed for me to come in. So I sort of stepped down from the first team a little bit. I went into the 23s. Again, we had a really good season there, and that's where I met Nathan Jones and Paul Hart. So worked with Lawrence for a good 3 or 4 years there. He ended up moving on. He was brilliant for me, class guy, top practitioner. But he ended up moving on to Nottingham Forest. I worked through the ranks at Charlton, and when Lawrence departed, that sort of gave me a scope to head things up there. Did that for 6 months, and then Nathan, who'd gone on to Brighton, got the manager's job at Luton. And at the time, I just felt it was a sort of a better prospect for me, having met with him and talked to the guys there. It was the chance to sort of lead an emerging sports science team and a club that, under my understanding, was going places. We had an amazing 2 years there. Sort of headed things up there. Built a department. Worked with two really good guys there who came on as a sports scientist and strength conditioning coach. And yeah, it was really successful, and then that led on to where I am now. So back in January 2019, got the opportunity to move to Stoke, and we just felt like it was one we couldn't turn down. And yeah, great. Again, really good team. I've got two really good lads in Joel Dawson, our sports scientist, and Rob Fox, our strength conditioning coach, as well as Chalky, who heads up the academy, who is a top guy, and again, another top practitioner. So we've got a really good department here. And then in line with that, I've been working on my MSc and at St Mary's in strength conditioning, and then just topping it up with bits and pieces like little certifications and qualifications along the way, which I think is integral, which I'll probably touch on a little bit later. But yeah, that's pretty much me.
No, that's awesome, mate. And yeah, we'll definitely touch on the work that Chalky does at the club and how that sort of integrates with the work you do. I think that'll be really good to sort of expand on his episode. But just as we're recording this, with the 24th of March, we're going through the coronavirus, and it's something that obviously we've touched on in previous episodes. But I don't want to fill the podcast with just about what clubs are doing at this time, because there's so much of a good work that goes on. But I think it would only be right just to touch on it a little bit in terms of your current situation as a coach, but then your current situation in regards to what the players are doing and what the club's doing. So do you want to just fill us in on where you're at currently?
Yeah, for sure. So we briefly spoke about a minute ago before we came on, but For me, there's a lot of unknown out there. I don't think anyone's sort of encountered anything like this, and that goes across the board from a practitioner, a coach, to probably the clubs and then the governing body. So as we've seen, it's constantly adapting. We're obviously, for me, and I guess Stoke City, the priority is the players' health. For me, it's gone a little bit above football now, unfortunately, and we have to follow those guidelines, those self-isolation guidelines, and working and staying at home. And obviously the players' health and safety and their families' health and safety is key. So we have to respect that. But yeah, I think, like, for me, the league's not really giving you any guidance on it, and you can understand why. But that creates a lot of sort of unknown, and we have to work with that. We have to be flexible. Things are constantly adapting, constantly changing. But just with regards to where we are at the moment, players are working from home, so we've set them remote training programs. The club have been great, and they've sort of backed us in making sure that we've got the right stuff for the lads. So we work with Stat Sports, and we use the Apex Pro monitoring system when we're normally in training. So the club have facilitated us to get the Apex Athlete package, and we've sent that all out to the lads individually. They haven't had to come in and pick it up. So we're making sure we maintain the health and safety and all the non-contact stuff. So we sent that to their houses. And then that's just given us a really good platform to monitor and track what they're doing. So they've synced the pads with their phones or their iPads. They go out, they do their session. We've set them through WhatsApp. Is our main point of contact, really. So they go out, complete that. A lot of them are doing it in different ways: pitch runs, cross country running, biking, stuff like that. And we've set different things for the different sort of positions where they're at in terms of the season, as AJ spoke about on your last podcast. So we're working with that, and what I like about using that is we've got continuity in terms of the metrics that we're tracking. So the stuff that we've set in them and they're using on that unit at home, it gives us all the same metrics that we would have as if we were in training. So total distance, high speed running, all the metabolic loading stuff, which for me gives a really good crossover. And we can see that work, and we can see what they're completing. We've spat out different reports for the coaches and the players, as well as us as a sports science department. So I think that's where we're at the moment, really. We've done other stuff like nutrition packs, nutrition guidelines, making sure that they're, again, priority is about immune function and making sure that they're boosting that via their nutrition, but then also management of some of their body composition stuff, just like you would do in the off season, really. But it is a little bit grey. It's a little bit out there at the moment, so we've got to work with that. The players have got to work with us and understand it a little bit, as well as the coaches, and we've just got to go with it at the moment. So that's where we are at, really.
Yeah, it's a really tough period, isn't it? And the one, obviously, we touched on with the lads in episode 68, where we covered, when we delved into the coronavirus and the sort of effect it's had on clubs. And it is just the uncertainty, isn't it? That's the real test at the moment, that we don't know when games are going to be. We're trying to prepare players with, well, no equipment now. Now we've gone into the official lockdown, isn't it? And you're trying to then put them into a real high performance environment, which, like we all know, that pretty much isn't going to happen overnight. So we need a bit of time, we need a bit of structure, and yeah, like we said off air, it's the time when we need someone to take responsibility. But at the same time, a lot of it is still unknown for a lot of the decision makers as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you have to have that understanding. As frustrating as it is with regards to football, professional sport, and what is created about our roles and sort of that unknown, but you have to respect that there is a major health crisis going on at the moment, and that is the key, that is the priority. And as part of that, probably the governing bodies don't know what's going on because the government don't fully know, and it's just creating a lot of up in the air stuff. And you just got to hope that over the next few weeks people follow the guidelines and it settles down a little bit. And then for me, like, off the back of that, that will create the opportunity for some more stringent and some more reliable stuff that isn't going to be constantly changing and adapting. And then once those dates come out or that plan or that structure is in place, then that gives us a little bit more guidance to work off of, and hopefully then we can put everything into plan, everything into action. But for me, like we've got to be prepared, and the players have for that scenario, and then off the back of that, like what's going to happen next season, you know, because that creates a load more problems and a load more unknown situations in terms of how the league's going to be formatted, and will there be a pre-season, will there be a proper off-season, and like we said, like it just affects everything really. So a bit crazy, but you got to roll the punches, and hopefully the work that we're doing at the moment will benefit the lads either way. And once there's that little bit more clarity, we can roll with it, you know. So
Yeah, I think that's the key, isn't it? And it's obviously a time that as practitioners you're truly tested in terms of being able to adapt and being flexible with your approach, and constantly finding that balance point, isn't it? But yeah, hopefully by the time this podcast drops, we're a little bit clearer on it. I don't know whether we will be or not, but hopefully we are. But one thing I wanted to dive in with you, Jared, is, and again, going sort of extending off Chalky's episode, is the culture at the club in terms of Stoke. And you can obviously relate this to previous clubs as well, but I see it as it's very strong at Stoke, and I think you can see that when you go into the club, but also looking from the outside. And then as soon as you start speaking to you guys, there's a very strong culture. So why do you think that is? And how does it work at the club? How is that culture so strong?
yeah, I think there is a strong culture, and I'm still relatively new to it. You know, I've been there for sort of 18 months, and Chalky's been there for a long time, coming up to 7-8 years, I think. And then you've got Joel and Foxy that I work with. Joel's a long-term fan, and Foxy's moved up a good 8-9 years ago. You know, so they've sort of been my go-to guys on it, and reference points to all those things. So I've learned a lot from them in terms of the structure of the club and what it makes up. But like you say, I think coming in, and that was sort of like the appealability of it really, was that it's such a strong club, it's such a strong fan base. Its history speaks for itself. It's massive. And then obviously you walk in, you've got great facilities, you've got a good squad, a good playing squad, good staffing around it. So for me, it gives you the platform to be really successful. But I think with regards to culture and sort of philosophy, that's been changed. It's certainly changed for me in the 18 months that I've been there, because we've had 2 managers now, and then off the back of that, which obviously brings changes in structure, in philosophy, playing style, all those things. But prior to me being there was again 3 managers in the space of 12 to 18 months, I think. So a lot of change there, and again, speaking with those guys, they've learnt a lot through those changes. And I think there was a period of stability at the club where I think maybe that playing style under Tony Pulis was notorious in the Premier League in terms of directness. And then you sort of had Hughes who came in and changed that a little bit with some of the foreign players that came in. And then you've had Lambert and Raul who've come in during tough periods for the club, you know. So I think there is a strong philosophy for sure in terms of the sort of working class background of the club, and the hard work and the determination that the fans sort of create on a match day, and then how that rubs off with the great owners that are there and the people that are deep rooted within the club, and what that expects. So I think there is that, but then for me, sort of like that philosophy changes with the managers that's there and the teams that you work in. Maybe just a little bit easier for me to talk about sort of like our philosophy or my philosophy, and I've come in and I've tried to put my own stamp on it. Obviously Chalky's there, and he runs the academy, and he's a great guy, and like his work speaks for itself, you know. So I haven't really needed to do too much with him in terms of the way that he works. I think maybe the one thing that we are looking to do more recently, now that I've been there for a period of time, is sort of make sure that there's continuity and there's structure from the first team, sort of falls down into into the academy and the good guys that work there. So we're currently working on bringing that a lot closer. So yeah, if a player does progress up to the first team, or a 23 that trains with us regularly regresses back down to the 23s, things sort of roll and flow a little bit more. I think that happens maybe informally at the moment, but sort of having a formal structure scheme of work where if that happens, they pretty much know exactly where they are and how that falls. And we're sort of basing that at the moment off some good stuff that was spoke about at the UKSCA conference, with how England set up and how Ben Rosenblatt's put that sort of structure in place. So we're working off like sort of a SCFC acronym of like speed, control, force and conditioning, and then certain elements make up those components. So for example, a speed would incorporate a 20 meter acceleration, probably some hamstring testing on the Nord board, and then off the back of that, sort of gives us a structure for that work, so we know exactly where that player is, and that goes across squads because we use the same testing and monitoring structures. So whether they're with us or whether they're with 23s, there's a plan, there's a scheme of work for improving that and progressing them on from where they are at the moment, and we're sort of working on that at the moment. Like I say, for me, a big thing is about continuity, and I've been at the club for 18 months now, got my teeth stuck in with the first team, and now that I've sort of been there for that period, been there during that transition of manager, that's allowed me to maybe look at how we do things across the club a little bit better, and how we can bring our schemes of work and our structures and all of that as close as possible. Like I say, so it's seamless either way, whether it's a progression or regression. The players are getting the best work that they can from them, and we as a staff are really stringent, and we know what each department's doing really, whether it's first team or academy. So that's sort of a work in progress at the moment, and hopefully I can keep you guys filled in with how that progresses. And I'm sure you'll ask me at the end, but my contact details will be out there, and if anyone wants to get in touch with that sort of stuff, then more than happy to send it across or show them and discuss it and refine it and make it even better, you know.
I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because when a lot of people, especially stepping into like a first team role, you go in with the intention of obviously putting your stamp on that program, but then with the also the intention of taking it throughout the club and getting to academy level and making sure that transition is as seamless as possible. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't. The way that the jobs work now, some people might not even get to the point of being able to do that. Will might they, in terms of like changes at clubs and things like that. So it's really interesting to hear like the sort of mindset that you're taking in terms of getting things embedded with the first team and then working its way down and making that as smooth as possible. So with that, like obviously relationships, and we touch on this time and time again, they're key, aren't they, in terms of staff members, because if there's breakdowns with those relationships, then things aren't going to be smooth. But at previous clubs, you don't need to touch on exactly the clubs or exactly the practitioners. Have you seen this done really well and really poorly? And what's your experience of this so far?
Yeah, so like when you asked me about stuff like this, I sort of jotted down a few points with regards to like my own personal philosophy. And it's not, there's obviously crossover and things like that, but for me, like probably top of the chart is your like sort of interpersonal relationships and how you work with people. And for me, that's probably a fundamental, because like you say, if you can't build those relationships with the coaches or the players or the staff that you're working with, in terms of background staff, and for me that's such a wide spectrum. So like I wrote down, you've got obviously the sports science staff that you look after and you manage and you work with, but then you've got medical, you've got groundsmen, you've got chefs, and they're all important to what you do. Obviously you've got the coaches, which are massive, because if you don't have a good relationship with them, a lot of your work isn't going to get put into place. And then obviously your players as well. And if they don't enjoy your work or like you as a person, then you're not going to get the best out of them, and then your job's going to be compromised by that. So like you say, that's absolutely massive for me. We've got a really good sports psychologist at the club called Joe Dixon at Stoke now, and I've personally done a lot of work with him myself in terms of sort of my coaching, how I get things across, how I manage certain situations, and my day-to-day frustrations and things like that, and how I tackle them. And he's been really useful for me. But yeah, like when I was at Charlton, like I say, I worked with a great department. I had Lawrence, who was sort of like my guru, my go-to guy, and he gave me the best schooling that I could imagine, really. And he's one of my best friends to this day. Like we had Josh Hornby there, and who's at Charlton now, heading things up. So he's done what I did and worked his way through the ranks. A really good guy, great practitioner. So we had a solid department there, and then we had, again, the people that we brought through there. We had Chris McConnell, who's at Wimbledon now, heading things up. So Lawrence done a great job in sort of in guiding us and structuring our pathways. And then I obviously took over the academy there. I was head of academy, sports science and medicine for 18 months prior to getting the first team. And that gave me a real good scope. And me and Lawrence worked closely in terms of building that relationship and putting things in place to make sure that regression was seamless. Obviously, that's since changed, and we're refining that and we're working on that. Obviously, with Chalky at the moment, and making sure that we're getting good things in place. But yeah, similar at Luton again, it was really important to make sure that those relationships going into a new club, and that was part of why I wanted to go there, because it was a test. Going to another club and having to build those relationships and develop my skills to refine and build relationships with people that had been there for a long time and maybe were not stuck in their ways, but potentially resistant to a young 26-year-old at the time coming in and wanting to change a lot of things. But that tested me and made me better as a practitioner. Away from sports science, it developed my personal skills, my professional skills, made me a better person as well as a practitioner, So I think for sure that those things are really important, and I've probably put that top of the chart in terms of a philosophy and a culture, and making sure that fundamentally you're a good person and people enjoy working with you. And then for me, that makes everything easier off the back of it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought Joe up as well, because he's actually coming on the podcast too. So it'd be great to touch in with the work that he does with you guys, because I know Chalky touched on the work that he does. So it'd be good to delve in from his point of view as well, because I think in terms of psychology, we spoke about it a little bit previously on episodes, but to get a specialist on and to dive into both the psychology of a coach, but then also with the player and how that interacts will be great. So yeah, I think that's key, and I think you've talked about there interpersonal relationships, but also getting out of your comfort zone, because there's a lot of people that will be in roles right now that probably know that they should test themselves by stepping out into another environment and another club in a different part of the country or whatever, or a different country, and that aren't doing it because it's nice and safe and it's comfortable, isn't it? So you've obviously done that and stepped out and tested yourself.
Yeah, of course. Like you say, I think there probably are a lot of people like that, and at times I've challenged that and I've questioned that, but they come back with valid excuses or valid reasons in terms of their family situation or things like that, which I think you have to be understanding of. But just for me personally, it's been a great experience and a great pathway so far, because obviously I've worked with three great clubs, three clubs that are in the Championship at the moment, and like to think that the work that you've done there has been long-standing and you sort of left your legacy. But it's been a great challenge, and like you say, even the personal stuff, moving away from home and getting different life experiences and living in different areas of the country is for sure one of the good things. But that enhances relationships. It builds. It makes common ground for discussion points. Just again, like as a human being, and break those barriers down. And then as part of that, it helps you get your work across. It helps you do your day-to-day stuff, and make sure that your work is tip top. So I can only speak for myself, but it's been a massive learning curve, massive journey, and I've enjoyed it so much so far. And hopefully I'm at Stoke for a good period of time, and I can do my good work here and see where that takes me. You know, that's all you can do. That's what I did at the other clubs, and the journey sort of unfolds in front of you. You know.
Yeah, definitely. I think it'd be great to take it on to your. Obviously, it's not something that we're running right now, but in terms of your day-to-day model, your use of tactical periodisation at the club, and how the sort of week tends to look normally. Obviously, not right now. So, do you want to delve into that and just give us some information on how that looks and how you guys work with that?
Yeah, of course. So again, it's been challenging for me recently because obviously I worked with Nathan at Luton and at Stoke for a good 3 years, and I worked with him at Charlton, and we had a pretty set routine, and we were pretty successful with it. Maybe not towards the back end, but we feel that didn't have much to do with the training week. It was maybe some other things, and we didn't really change too much from that sense because we felt like that wasn't the issue, like I said. But again, the new guys have come in. Obviously, Michael O'Neill as a manager, got Billy McKinley as the assistant manager, and then obviously worked really closely with Rory Delap as first team coach. So since they've come in, little bits and pieces have changed, but in terms of, it sort of opened my eyes up as well, because I think I was pretty rigid and pretty structured with what I was doing before, and like I said, I thought it worked. I think we were getting good performance gains and adaptations, but and also like our robustness and availability levels were really good. So I don't think it's worked, but it has given me scope to change bits and pieces. But just to talk you through sort of our normal day-to-day week, and how that looks from both like sort of a gym and a pitch perspective. So like we played a game Saturday, and this is a normal sort of Saturday to Saturday week, and obviously you can chop and change things when it comes to Tuesday, Wednesday games, in terms of switching your match day plus and minus stuff. I'll just go through like a normal Saturday. Saturday is probably the most straightforward thing. You play Saturday, Sunday. We're typically off unless we have like a midweek game at home. If we're away, just because of the travelling and stuff like that, we tend to give them off so they can spend it with their families and recover at home. And we've done stuff like set out guidelines and put together recovery menus with the stuff that they should be doing away from the building. But that's all standard education and upskilling the players in terms of like 24-hour athlete stuff, bits and pieces like that. But when they're back in on a Monday, the starters, they'll always have like a lighter day. So if we've got a midweeker, they'll stay in, but typically on a Saturday, they'll come out and they'll do like a real light sort of pitch session. We split the warm-up as well. So there's different content within the warm-up for the non-starters and the starters. So we'll look to give like the non-starters a speed exposure within that period and just sort of utilise that window of opportunity to get working. And that's the same across the board for the whole day, really. So the starters will maybe come out a little bit later. They'll do some prep work in the gym that's focused around recovery, spend a bit of time with the physios as well. Whereas the non-starters, they'll get stuck into some good gym work. We've got a syllabus of work that we complete across the course of a week. And that, again, that's part of maybe my philosophy, which we didn't touch on a minute ago. But we've got a syllabus of work that we complete, and that month it starts from that Monday with the non-starters, so that we're using that opportunity to get work into them, which I think personally is vital. Because if I'm sure not many people do it anymore, but if you treat all the players the same when there's different stimulus getting into them, different training load, then I think it scuppers you a little bit later down the season when people come in that haven't been involved and things like that. So that follows the day, the theme of the day on a Monday, and then conditioning wise, we'll get some good work into them. We go for some volume stuff that they don't typically get within across, because they've obviously missed a Saturday. So we'll get that work into them in training and give them a real good hit on that day. But obviously Tuesday is normally our main conditioning day with the whole squad, so we have to be mindful of that, and we try and work them in different parameters and different schemes of work to what they're going to go into a Tuesday, so you don't get that training monotony and things like that. And then we'll do some good work with them in the gym after, typically focus it around like upper body and trunk stuff. And then, like I said, Tuesday, our main conditioning day. So right from the off, we have some conditioning focus work within the gym. Typically, sort of speed stuff, because we then go into the warm up out on the pitch, and we hit lads with like a speed exposure. So we aim for like 4 to 5 speed exposures within the warm up and expose them to that max velocity element of the program. A bit of hamstring conditioning, a bit of speed development work, and we've had some really good results off that. We've increased pretty much all of the lads' speed. I think we've only had touch wood, so I think that's been really fruitful. And then we typically on that day we keep things smaller, we keep it intensive. So we'll aim for like small possession stuff, small sided games. Obviously sometimes the management team want to put in some tactical stimulus or element for that day, but we just try and control the intensive elements. So we have like a monthly periodisation plan that we try and stick to. Again, that in the championship that gets scuppered by midweek fixtures, and we have to be fairly flexible with that, because I don't know, a 3-game week might be really tough on the lads, and that will throw out the periodisation plan because we can't get that work into them. So like I say, we have to be flexible, and that's constantly adapting and changing. But yeah, we try and keep it smaller on a Tuesday, and then because we see it as the hardest day of the week, we also chuck in like a high speed running element. So we condition the lads on that. Obviously there's a big demand for that come match day, so we try and get that within a training week. And then like I said, in the championship you're getting a lot of midweek stuff, so we find that it's worked quite well in terms of the acute chronic stuff as well, because if they've got a midweeker and they're doing say 1,000 meters high speed running, if we're not getting that in the following week, it will throw the acute chronic stuff out quite a lot as well. So we found that that's quite nice, and we've had good results with that, chucking in sort of like a MAS style high speed running drill at the end for pretty much everyone, maybe consideration for 2 or 3 lads that are constantly getting hits from games and stuff like that. So again, you have to be adaptable and flexible. And then that's sort of our main day in the gym as well. So we try and get everything on that one day and sort of condense that accumulated fatigue. And that's our real tough conditioning day within the training week. So we'll give the lads a real good hit in the gym. And that's normally focused around sort of like a bilateral, unilateral and posterior chain element, which again found really good results with, and we're quite stringent with that, and it's worked well. And again, that's something that I've probably bought in, and Foxy's RS&C has really bought into that and driven that, and sort of made it his own and driven that. And I know that, like you said, sort of left that at Luton with Elliot, the S&C there, he still follows that model, so it's been successful. No, I'm rambling on a little bit, but trying to get everything in there from the course of the week. Wednesday's typically our day off, so we use that as a recovery day. Obviously we have a good hit on the Tuesday, so we find that having that day off and letting the lads recover, getting in what they need away from the building as well, spending time with the family and following those recovery guidelines that we set, and then that sort of brings you on to a Thursday. So that's again probably, I think it's good to go down the route of another conditioning day. I know maybe some people don't think that, and maybe they're getting too much into a week, but I find that if you can get that sort of the other conditioning stimulus in, and we work typically more extensive stuff on a Thursday. So again, there's different set themes for the day. So it's sort of more of our power day, our explosive stuff like pre and within the warm up. So we do a lot of monitoring on this day as well. We use the gym aware and the force plates, the force decks, to monitor all the lads' jump stuff. That helps with some readiness to train stuff. So we do a daily questionnaire, and the jump stuff within pre-training sort of falls in nicely with that. So before we go out to training, we've got a good idea of where the lads are at and how that Tuesday's affected them and how they're feeling from that week. So and also it serves as like sort of a longitudinal sort of performance / monitoring element as well, which we found pretty nice, and we've had some good results off again. Always look to sort of hit a change of direction element within the warm up, so like a multi-directional speed. Again, they're getting that element controlled. I I typically tend to stay away from ball work. Like they get a lot of that within the session, and the coaches that I've worked with over the last couple of years have enjoyed that, because it doesn't mean that I'm using 15 minutes to do a ball drill that they're then going to go into in the session and probably replicate very similar. They can get straight in and focus on sort of getting multidisciplinary outcomes out of the training, so tactical, physical, technical, etc. So I've sort of used the warm-ups, the 15-20 minute window for the warm-ups as real physical windows, and getting sort of elements of work in across the course of a week. And again, we found that performance-wise and robustness, so that's really helped. And then the session itself is more extensive, more tactical focus, more large-sided possessions games with those, like I said, tactical elements, getting closer to the game on the Saturday. And then we split sort of a Thursday quite nicely, because we, with the sort of management team and the sort of way that I've fortunately got myself in terms of position, sort of by that match day -2 Thursday, sort of know where the team's at and what it's starting to look up and shape like. So we aim to get sort of like the development lads and the lads that probably aren't gonna play. Sometimes you run the gauntlet with that, and it has come back to bite you in the arse at times. But as a whole, it works quite nicely. You get those lads that aren't starting, and they get another hit in the gym, which again we found to be really fruitful, and just another window of opportunity to get that work in. And again, that's where your sort of interpersonal relationships come in with the lads, because some of them are frustrated or disappointed, but you shape it so that they understand that it's for their benefit, for their development. And we've had some senior lads who have been quite resistant in the first place come round to it and buy into it, and they feel better. And then when they've gone into the team, they can see those benefits, and it sort of drives itself after that, So that's worked quite nicely. And then Friday, sort of for me, that's a day where our work's done for the week, really. We taper everything really down. We have, like I say, we have a good relationship with coaches, so they understand the necessity to make that session as short and sharp as possible, get the primer in, and warm-up wise, I focus on some reactives, get the lads really sharp. Probably the warm-up of the week that they enjoy, you get that competitive element in. And again, it's gone down well, and they understand that come that Friday, it's a little bit more fun, it's a little bit more bubbly. It's not going to be as hard, which they probably enjoy, and that's probably the reason that they're buzzing off it as much as anything. And then the session, is light. We typically go into something short and sharp, like a rondo or a little possession box, and again, get the lads bright and bubbly, get them in the mood for the game the following day. And then normally that follows up with some tactical reinforcement or some walk-through shape or set pieces, stuff like that. Again, very, very typical of what other people are doing. And then again, for me, just like I said, you run in the gauntlet a little bit, but I found it as a really good opportunity. We take the non-starters off typically, and we do a good bit of work with them. Some small-sided game variations, little possessions, and instead of standing around watching a tactical or going in and not doing something that's going to benefit them, they get that little hit. It's only 5, 10, 15 minutes, but they get some accelerations, some decelerations, some sharp change of direction. They get it all with the ball, which they enjoy. And again, typically in the beginning there was a bit of resistance to it, and they didn't see the point of it or were frustrated. But we sort of educated them on that, and now they come over and they work hard, and they understand that 15 minutes is their benefit because of what they're missing out on the Saturday. So for me, like, it's about the non-starters as much as it is the starters, because like I said, there will be, due to the nature of the championship season, there will be an expectation for them to step up at some point, and it's their and their prerogative and ours as well that they take that opportunity and fill that gap and go on to fulfil that, And again, I can give some good examples, like when I was at Luton, we had Jack Stacey, who now plays for Bournemouth. He came in at the time James Justin was injured. He plays for Leicester now. Stepped up. He'd been doing all that extra work. Jack held his place down in the squad. JJ couldn't get in. he did all the work. He understood the benefit of it. Worked really hard. Jack was performing both in all parameters and was doing really well. And then the left back got injured, Luton, and JJ went in there on the opposite side. So you had two right backs within the team, both who were performing, both who did the work seamlessly and no complaints, got on with that work, and they understood the benefits of doing that work around it and making sure that when they got their opportunity to step up, that they took it and were in a real good place to do so. So for me, it's about the starters as much as it is the non-starters, and making sure that your whole squad is in a good place and getting that work in. And then again, Saturday, pretty straightforward, looks after itself. But again, I keep banging on about windows of opportunity. It's making sure that post game you're getting that work in with your non-starters, and we've introduced like 3 blocks of running, which sort of they have a volume block, a high speed block, and sort of like a sprint block. And again, they've bought into that. They understand the benefits of it, the structure now. They're used to that. And then again, we've introduced some strength work. So just a little hit after the game, bilateral, unilateral posterior chain. So the lads now know what they're doing, whether they've been doing that for a long time or they've come out of the team for whatever reason, injury or tactical, or just fell out of favour a little bit, and pretty much the whole squad are up to speed with that. So I think we've put together sort of a fairly rigorous week where they're getting a lot of different work across a number of parameters, and for me it's worked quite well over the sort of 8-9 years that's been developed, and it's continuously adapting, continuously developing, and again, like I say, working with good people, and again, some of the stuff from my philosophy in terms of constant learning, listening to podcasts such as this, looking at stuff on Instagram, Twitter, doing your qualifications and upskilling yourself. It's always going to adapt and change. But that's sort of where we're at in terms of a day-to-day training week. I know it's been quite long, but just wanted to give you as much detail as possible, really.
No, I think that's been great, to be fair, mate. And it addresses, you've really tied in a sort of discussion that we bring up quite a lot in our network meetings, which is managing the individual within a team environment. And obviously addressing the non-starters is a big part of that. And you get the benefits of it longer term, like you just mentioned with the lads at Luton. So no, I think that was awesome to talk through all that, and the detail there was great, and obviously all the rationales. I hope people can take stuff away, and it's very similar to what we spoke about with Paul, but obviously on another level, the academy and the first team. So it's really good to get a full picture of everything that's going on at the club, and the reasons behind it. I also wanted to ask you, like you just mentioned there about places you're looking at to develop for yourself as a practitioner. So you're looking at podcasts, you're looking at different areas like that. Where would you point people to? Where are the sort of places you're going, like specifically?
Yeah, for me, and again, like I said, it's a big part of my philosophy is I don't think you can get stagnant in this business because it's so continuously moving forward. Like I look back to where I was, say, my first day when I walked into Charlton with Lawrence. We walked into the gym, and I think there was probably 2 electric old school gym bikes. You had probably 2 or 3 easy barbells where the lads were doing bicep curls. There was a TV on the wall with Good Morning on, and then you fast forward sort of 8-9 years, and how much everything's professionalized, and how there's so many good practitioners working out there. I don't think you can be standstill. I don't think you can be stagnant and short-minded as this is working, so I'm going to stick with it. I think you have to be constantly developing, constantly upskilling yourself, and I think that sort of like I go on to mention in terms of like your personal attributes and how important they are to the people you work with and driving standards. I think you have to be innovative in terms of your learning techniques and constantly looking at things and bringing new ideas to the table. And they might not always be good ideas, but I'm lucky enough to work with 2 other, 3 other, 4 other good practitioners that we sit down, we discuss things, we critique it, we critically analyse it, stuff that we've learned through our journey and those skills and how they work. And I think just discussion, talking with good people around the business, a lot of people that have been on this podcast, yourself, um, is key, you know. But in terms of looking at stuff for CPD, I think my masters was eye opening, because uni was great on my undergrad, but it was hard to sort of apply stuff. Like, you were doing stuff in a lab and you were just thinking, not sure how this is going to really affect me like day to day, unless I really want to go down that physiology route, which doesn't tend to happen loads in football. Maybe when you're working at the top and you have access, an unlimited resource funds pot, and you can really go down that avenue by getting consultant people in and stuff like that. But typically you don't get that at the levels that I've worked at. Hopefully I'll get there one day. But my masters was brilliant for that. So I just, because I was working and I was doing it distance learning, I just applied everything. So all of my essays were targeted at something which helped me learn, and off the back of that you do loads of reading and looking at journals, and that was brilliant. Just little qualifications that I've done, little certifications. So like, I've just booked on to the Exos Performance Specialist one during this time to try and keep me busy. So I'm not getting too stagnant with the lack of contact with the lads and the staff at work. So that'll be a great little tool to learn from. And again, you probably cover a lot of things through your experiences, but just if you pick up one or two things, then it adds to you as a practitioner. But I like the looks of like the Altis one as well. Out in America, again, I know some guys that have been over there and they speak really highly of it. So looking at that, just like UKSCA workshops. Again, I think there's been a boom over the last couple of years in terms of conferences, workshops, network meetings. I think they've really taken off, probably due to the likes of you guys who drive that and give that platform to go and meet and discuss and look at topical issues, which I think is great. But then, yeah, probably one of the main ones is, and again, you have to be careful, again, skills that I learned on my masters in terms of critiquing what that information is and how and where it's come from. But things I heavily use Twitter, Instagram to look at what good people are doing out there. Some people not doing some good stuff, in my opinion, but again, that's where your expertise as a practitioner and professional come in, and you break things down, you look at things, and like I said, you go and discuss those with good people, and you find a way, you know. So they'd probably be my main pillars of development. So sort of your real qualifications in terms of MSc. Hopefully over the next few years I'll go and look at maybe doing a PhD when things settle down a little bit at work. But your certifications such as Exos, UKSCA, NSCA, stuff like that, and then just constantly being busy on Twitter, on Instagram. Like one of my, I get ribbed for it at work, and a few of my colleagues will probably batter me for saying it, but I always use my straplines, busy is better, because you're constantly learning, constantly developing. So I use that quite a lot, and I'm always on the go, you know.
No, it's good. It is good to be. It's good to be busy, isn't it? And to use your time wisely, because there's plenty of information out there, isn't it? It's just a case of searching through a lot of the nonsense and finding the good stuff. But mate, I think that's been class in terms of, like I said, tying it in with Chalky's episode. But the work that you're doing there at the club, I know, is quality. So it was great to catch up with you and chat with you. You just mentioned there about Twitter. Is that the best place for people to reach out, or is there somewhere else if they've got questions about anything?
Probably my LinkedIn's probably the best one. So if you just search my name on LinkedIn, that's probably where I go to the most. I just use the other bits and pieces for scrolling, but in terms of being contactable, that's probably the best. And then my email address, I've got two. So I've got a personal one, which is Jared, JARED, rs32@hotmail.co.uk. And then my work one's Jared .roberts-smith at stokecityfc.com. So either LinkedIn or my emails are probably the most accessible.
Class, mate. Well, really appreciate you coming on, and hopefully by the time this goes out in like next week, things might hopefully be a bit clearer for you in
Yeah.
terms of schedules and things like that. I'm not sure whether I'm promising something that's not going to happen quite as yet, but fingers crossed, eh? And when the season does get back up and running, I wish you all the best for the rest of the season, mate.
No, I appreciate it. Hopefully, like you say, it settles down over the next few weeks and we can get back stuck into it and make sure that we finish the season strong and see where next year takes us with everything that's going to go on, you know. But looking forward to it.
Top man. Well, thanks a lot for coming on, and we'll catch up soon.
No, brilliant. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Ben. Top
Cheers,
man.
Jared.